Welcome once again to TV Toastmasters. My name is Philip Mandel. I'll be your host for this segment, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Lyn Cikara, who is an executive coach.
Hi, Philip.
Lyn, welcome to TV Toastmasters.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, executive coach. Tell me what that means and how you got to be one.
Well, an executive coach is a little different from life coaching in the sense that I work exclusively with corporate executives, CEOs, CIOs, CFOs, people in top management and the senior leadership team. Okay. And, we work to overcome barriers in their careers. And how I got there was through sort of a circuitous route, because I am originally an occupational therapist. And when I immigrated from South Africa, I was searching for something more than just working in physical rehab. In South Africa, I'd worked in mental health, helping top leaders there who had had illnesses related to stress. And so I wanted to...
I'm sorry, what kinds of illnesses then?
Well, for example, after a heart attack, it's pretty common to have depression.
Oh my gosh.
And so my clients would come after having an incident like that. They'd become depressed, and they would land up coming to the health, to the mental hospital that I worked in. It wasn't a mental hospital, but it was a clinic. And we would try and help them build their confidence again and get them back to work and then stay healthy once they were back at work. So I love doing that work, and there was nothing in the field of occupational therapy here in the United States doing that. And when I read about executive coaching, it was a perfect fit, because that's what I do now without the hospital stay.
Okay, all right, interesting. Okay, very, very good. So when you say overcoming barriers, so you're speaking to a half a dozen executives, let's say, I assume individually, not as a group, and this person you're helping with what barrier, just as some examples of the barriers that they want help with.
Interestingly, success is their own barrier.
Success?
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Because by the time the type of leader that I work with, by the time they've reached that level of leadership, they've developed habits and they've developed behaviors that hold them back. For example, I have a client right now who is very helpful, and he wants to be involved in everything. But when he was running a smaller part of the organization, that worked. But now he still wants to have his finger in every pie, but he doesn't have the time, so he's going home at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and that's not healthy. Right. So the barrier is his own behavior. In order for him to regain his control over his time, we have to work on how he can control his urge to help out, say no more, and to delegate.
Delegate, yeah.
Yeah, and so empowering people is often a challenge for top leaders, because they hold the reins, they make the decisions, and that's challenging for them to have the trust to know that these decisions will continue to be made in the same spirit that they used to make the decisions. So that could be a barrier.
Interesting. Okay, so it kind of leads me to the next question, which is I'm out and networking and meeting folks who may be heads of startups or climbing the corporate ladder somewhere. How would I know who would be a good referral for you, for example?
I love working in sort of male-dominated, traditionally male industries like automotive, manufacturing, engineering, that sort of thing, construction.
Yeah.
And so an ideal client for me is either a woman who is climbing the leadership ladder in a male-oriented business, and men who are in that industry and are just challenged by everything that they've built, in a sense, and that they need to alleviate some of the stress of their position. So those would be ideal clients.
Got it. I read recently that people who strive and strive and strive and finally make it to the top, there's no more to strive for. So when you say success is their own issue, that's not quite what you said, but I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now I'm at the top, like, or
You're right. You're right. Meaning and purpose is so important in top leaders' lives because it's very lonely up at the top, and it's also can feel like, now what is the next challenge? I've reached the pinnacle, and it could be a bit of a letdown. So the work of an executive coach that I do is really to help clients find that meaning in their lives. So we work a lot on things that you wouldn't normally work on in earlier stages of a career, things like their purpose. What is their vision for their lives? What legacy do they want to leave behind? And how do they balance their family life with the high-powered position that they're in, the responsibility that they have?
Interesting. So I just feel the urge to ask if you could share a tip or two based on the common types of issues people have, and
so
help our audience.
One of the tips is to have a to don't list, to say no.
Don't.
Marshall Goldsmith started.
I love it.
He said that everyone's so attached to their to-do list that at this level of leadership, people have to learn to say no. And no, I don't do that anymore. And no, I don't do this anymore. So they have to develop their to-don't list. Like, I don't stay at work past 6:30 or whatever time, 5:30. That's part of it.
Delightful.
That'll serve you for a long time.
Where were you when I needed you, when I was a budding engineer and working 78 hours a week? That's brilliant.
The other thing is to leave your telephone in a place where you cannot be interrupted by it. Those things are such a distraction. And in order to get into, being fully present with the individual, the contractor or the other business executive that they're in a meeting with, that phone is such a distraction. So put it away. Don't even have it on or near you when you're interacting with people at any level. Because one of my clients is struggling with that. And what his counterpart said, that it's almost disrespectful because his phone will go and immediately he'll be talking and showing great interest, but then it immediately pulls him away and that person feels disrespected.
Gotcha.
So those are two key.
A don't list.
Yes.
And give your phone a nap.
Right.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Can be very difficult for some.
Yes. So back to when you and I first met, which is only just a few months ago. We met at the Amplify Success conference put on by Dirk's Counseling and Consulting, led by Cindy Ball, whom I interviewed here recently. And I'm curious what brought you to that event, which is all about helping people with disabilities find work. And I think this relates to your background back in South Africa, is that right?
It relates to my background as an occupational therapist.
Gotcha.
My best friend in South Africa actually ran a consulting company very similar to the Dirk's Counseling and Consulting, where she helped, from the other perspective, she helped the people with disabilities find jobs and then present themselves in more of a confident, job seeker sort of method that she taught them. And so it was interesting to me that they hosted this at Nike. And my belief is that in order to get people with disabilities included, it has to start at the top. So I was hoping to connect with and learn from the top leaders on what are they doing to break through this mindset or to create this mindset. So that was why I went to the conference.
Interesting. Well, if I remember correctly, they did have a bunch of people in their inclusion department. I'm just making up language here, but
they did.
I think that's the right
Yes.
aspect, yeah.
Yes, and I connected with a couple of those people, and it's hard. You know, inclusion's not something that just happens because you talk about it or that you're aware of it. It really does have to start with the heart of the top leadership.
Good.
Yeah.
Lyn, if someone wanted to know more about you or to get in touch, how would they do that?
Well, my website is lyncikara.com. I'll spell it because it's an unusual name.
Okay.
It's Ly1N, and the last name is C for Charlie, Ikara, and .com.
LynCikara.com.
Right, and they can either, on my newsletter, you know, on my website there is a newsletter. They can either sign up for that to get a feel of how I approach leadership, and or just contact me through there.
Okay, and then how about any of the social media sites?
Yes, on LinkedIn the same thing. I have a LinkedIn profile, and on the LinkedIn profile they can just message me and we can connect.
Very good.
Yeah.
Lyn, it's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you for your tips, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Lyn Cikara, Executive Coach. My name is Philip Mandel, and this has been TV Toastmasters. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Ken Coombs here speaking about TV Toastmasters. As an area director, I see more value in that venue than perhaps some of you do, so I want to share that. Providing a televised voice for District 7, its clubs, and their members not only gives people a chance to come here and get a project ticked off that says speak on television, it gives contestants in an area contest or a division or a district contest at least a chance to come and practice and see what they look like. It gives people a chance to share an important message with the district, whatever that might be. So consider your next speech perhaps being on television. Not your 15 minutes of fame, but your chance to reach a broader audience.
Welcome back to another episode of TV Toastmasters. I'm Erik Bergman with We Toasted Toastmasters in Lake Oswego, and tonight we're going to add a real dose of drama to the proceedings. My guest tonight is a Toastmaster, a public speaker, a keynote speaker, and she has a knack for drama. In fact, she's created a one-woman show that she's taken on the road, and she's going to tell us about her creative process, what draws her to the stage, and a few other things about how she brought her personal story to life for the entertainment and amusement of people across the Northwest. So I'd like to introduce my guest tonight, Shannon Milliman.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Shannon, it's so great that you're here to tell us about your one-woman show, which is titled Not So Supernova. And it's no surprise to me that you went and created this type of show, in fact, because when I first saw you in Toastmasters, you were one of the most dramatic, over-the-top speakers I had ever seen compete in a speech contest. I said, where did this come from?
Yeah, I suppose that's probably accurate. I have felt from time to time that maybe I'm a square peg in a hole, whatever they say. But the joy of that is in Toastmasters, everyone can fit in and learn from each other and grow. So yeah, I love to express myself and do so in a big way.
Right, you're certainly not one of these reserved people using data and facts to try to persuade us. You put your whole body into it. And now, how did your love of drama come about, and how did you first get into the theater mind?
I truly can't remember a time when I didn't love the stage, but I do remember when I was young having a few opportunities. In 6th grade, I was in Oliver Twist, and I was the red wheel and boy number 2. My line was, "Any stuff? Why, they ain't even worth nothing." And I just loved, even in such a small role, the joy of people laughing. And I feel like you can break the rules when you're on stage. You can be whoever you want to be. And I just get an immense sense of joy and liberation from that.
Now, eventually, this brought you around to writing your own one-woman show, Not So Supernova. Can you talk about the origins of that? What inspired you to do it, and how did you go about getting started?
I feel that life is shorter than we want it to be, and we are on this earth for a designated number of days that we don't know. And there's this urgency within me that so desires to create something that makes an impact, that gives joy and light, and maybe processes some of the ups and downs in my own life. And I love to write and find outlet in doing so. So I felt that it was a good next step as I grew my skills in Toastmasters and speaking, professionally, bigger spectrum, that I could tell my own stories and do so with no rules. And when I started to write, I found I had a couple main focuses, and that were familial relationships. So that's where I started.
Right, and to me it seems you are very fearless about digging into your past self, and you use the journal entry or the diary entry, and you even had a name for your diary, which was?
A couple. One was Remembrera, because when you remember everything that's important. Yeah. And there was a Writelia, the feminine form of write.
So excellent. So use the format of actual journal entries to paint yourself as a young teen, and then as an adult.
Yeah.
And going back and forth between the two. And I was very interested in the structure of how you did that, and also the depth you went into, because although it's entertaining, it's certainly not lightweight.
Yeah, it's definitely, people have told me that it's kind of a roller coaster of emotion. They go in there laughing to tears and then crying to tears. And I think, isn't that indicative of life, where you feel such high highs and such low lows? And I think the focus of telling a story that is real helps all of us remember that it's okay to have these experiences, and that we should talk about them, and we should explore them, and we should feel the pain, we should feel the joy, we should let that weight take the space that it takes. And when I wrote my own stories, I found so much liberation and peace with the struggles in my own life.
Mm-hmm. That certainly, though, takes an act of courage to really bare your soul to people who don't know you, and talking about the lives of your family members too. That could be seen by a lot of us as too private. But what gave you the strength to just say, I'm moving ahead, and let the chips fall where they may?
In many ways, I think part of it's just, I have enough self-deprecating, take me or leave me, and that mask of humor is enough for me to remember. Don't take myself too seriously. But there are parts, as you shared, that I reveal, personal things with my husband relationship and personal things with my daughter. And I had their permission, first of all. And second of all, I found, even to the day of performing, like when my daughter watched me perform, although I had her permission, she struggled, and it opened up another bridge that we could talk about some really difficult things. And I found in closed doors of people at home who watched the show, they've come away weeks later telling me, you gave us something to think about. We've talked about things that we've never talked about before. And I guess that was an added blessing of the creation, is by me putting it all out there, I've hopefully been able to help other people put a little bit of it out there and talk about things that might help heal things that are wounded.
One of the things that I think you're doing admirably tonight is sitting nice and straight and upright, keeping the position so that our cameras are on us. But when you're on stage, you're turning the chair over and sprawling over it. You're practically standing on your head. You're doing martial art moves. you're dancing, you just throw your whole body and spirit into it. What does that feel like for you up there? And what are you trying to convey with that?
When I was young, I started out learning ballet and have that foundation, and I've always loved to dance. And again, when I learned dance, I learned the foundation and learned awareness of my body. And then as I've grown and learned how to use it, I've learned to break the rules. And I experience such a complexity of emotions when I use my full body, and I just don't know any other way. I cannot express myself without moving. And I find when I perform it live, it's such a joy because I'm able to feed off the audience. And while I have rehearsed and have it all as, I expect it to go, a certain laugh or a reaction that I don't normally get will send electricity to me and make me do something different. And I feel that symbiotic relationship with the audience, to me, cheering for me, wanting me to share something that they can take home that is precious to them, just makes me uncontrollably controlled up there.
My goodness, that's really so interesting. How has your play evolved? And now I should say this is a 90-minute show approximately, and you're the only person in it. You're on stage the whole time. No stage left exit for you. What's it like to practice, perform, memorize, get up there and lay your heart out?
Oh, it's also a roller coaster of emotions. Before I kind of share that, when I first debuted I was in Alaska, my hometown, and I was behind the stage. When I've done theatrical things before, I've had a cast to share that electric energy with, but this time I was alone with all of my feelings, and I felt kind of overwhelmed, extremely excited, and as I performed it, and was about to perform it the first time, I thought about my process, so what you asked about, and I remember that I had a desire, and that was enough, and I sat my butt down, and I wrote, and I did not let myself get interrupted. And for a day, I sat down, and I wrote about 4 vignettes, and it has evolved through time. Later, I found I participated in Mortified Portland, which is an NPR kind of base, and that's when I used my real diaries in it, and I realized that I could meld those into my one-woman show, and I found a way to do it. And it was a reminder that when I'm in a creative mode, when we're all in a creative mode, if we allow inspiration to come to us and we're ready for it and we're looking for it and we're seeking it, new ideas will come. And then little by little, you don't have to have it figured out at the beginning, but by the end, you'll have a version that's good enough to share.
That's great. Well, I applaud your effort. I've watched your show on video, and I hope that it's around town sometime when I can see it in person. I just appreciate it so much, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, I really appreciate it.
This is another session of TV Toastmasters. I'm your host, Erik Bergman. I hope you come back again, and I hope you've enjoyed tonight's interview with Shannon Milliman. She's the one-woman author-performer of Not So Supernova, and information about her show is online at shannonmilliman.com. Come back again and watch TV Toastmasters.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Harmon. I'm a member of TV Toastmasters. In this club, we have an opportunity to practice speaking before the camera as well as running the equipment room. If you're interested in being interviewed on TV Toastmasters or becoming a member, please go to Toastmasters.org and look for us, or simply search for TV Toastmasters on the web.